The desert winds of Avaros 3 whispered over the dunes as the HSS Terra Nova touched down, steam hissing from its belly. Captain Roland Vex adjusted his collar, stepping down the ramp into a world of strange geometry and deep violet sky. This was a mission of peace. First contact, high stakes, no screw dash-ups. Behind him marched LT Mirayun, a brilliant linguist with too much caffeine in her veins and no tolerance for nonsense. "I hope this isn't another diplomatic dance with protocol and speeches," she muttered. "I left my ceremonial gown on Mars." Roland smirked. "Let's hope it's nothing too revealing." The alien city rose ahead like polished coral, towers spiraling in impossible directions, glimmering with embedded gemstones. A delegation awaited them, 7 tall figures with angular silhouettes and shimmering robes that sparkled in the heat haze. At the center stood one taller than the rest, her robe heavier, adorned with flowing silver symbols. The Queen. Her name came through the translator as Jariah, Queen of the Sylenari, Empress of 11 moons, Mother of intimate enlightenment. Myra raised an eyebrow at that last one. Jariah approached. Her eyes glowed softly, purple and intense. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she spread her arms, smiled and, with no warning whatsoever, let her robe fall to the ground. Roland's jaw nearly detached. The Queen stood proud, unclothed but utterly composed, her silken azure skin catching the twin suns' light. Like water, her body was sculpted, perfect, strange, her anatomy half familiar, half mystery. Mira elbowed Roland hard enough to crack a rib. "Say something, Captain, IER, ... Double quotes. Roland cleared his throat. "Thank you for such a generous greeting." The Queen's smile widened. "You honor me with your eyes, Roland of Earth. We meet in truth, not cloth." Her people followed her lead, disrobing in silent unity, shimmering bodies aligned like a living painting. Roland struggled not to glance. Myra just sighed. "Great, we're in a nudist theocracy with a thing for eye contact." Jariah extended her hand. "Come, we shall walk the garden of welcome and talk of peace, desire, and your intentions." Roland took her hand cautiously. It was warm, smooth, strangely electric. The garden was nothing like Earth's. Tall vines pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, their glow responding to emotion. Roland watched his pulse flicker through the leaves as Jariah leaned in. "You are tense," she said. "Do you find our ways unsettling? Just different," Roland said, trying not to look down. "We usually don't, a meet like this. Humans are big on clothes." "A shame," Jariah said, brushing his shoulder. "Hiding invites dishonesty. Do not worry. Your reactions amuse me." Mira stayed a few paces behind, scanning the vines with a handheld device. "Captain," she called, "these plants are responding to neural frequencies. They mirror arousal, fear, curiosity. Be careful." Jariah laughed, a deep melodic sound. "Your companion is wise. Curiosity is the first seduction." Roland chuckled nervously. "We came for peace, not seduction. Why not both?" They arrived at a crystal dais where Sylenari dancers swirled in slow, hypnotic movements. Jariah gestured to a throne beside hers. Roland hesitated, then sat, his hands tightly clasped in his lap. "Your people fight wars, take resources, yet your voice is gentle." "Why? Because peace is harder than war," Roland said. "Takes more courage to speak than to shoot." Jariah tilted her head. "Beautiful and rare. She leaned in, close enough for him to smell something floral, something alien. And would you, Roland of Earth, share truth with me as we do on Sylenari? He swallowed. What kind of truth? She smiled again. The kind that starts with a kiss. His mind raced protocol, reputation, ethics, but Jariah's presence was magnetic, a goddess of vulnerability and power, and behind her sensuality, a clear purpose. Testing him, Roland hesitated. Then, softly, respectfully, he touched her lips. She kissed like a promise. The plants around them shimmered like 1,000 stars dot from behind them. Mira groaned. We're definitely going to have to explain this to command. Captain Roland Vex wasn't sure if it was the kiss, the scent in the air, or the alien sunlight. But something inside him had shifted. The moment Jariah's lips met his, the Sylenari plants around them reacted, blossoming open with shimmering petals, releasing glowing spores that hovered like fireflies. He blinked, stepping back slightly. What just happened? Jariah's voice was calm and knowing. Truth was shared. The garden responded. This is how it speaks. Mira stepped closer, her scanner beeping wildly. The flora isn't just decorative. It's biologically linked to Sylenari emotion, kind of like an empathic biohologram. These spores, they're reacting to you to like you just proposed marriage. Roland cleared his throat. We barely kissed. Here, that's basically foreplay, courtship, and part of a treaty, Mira muttered. Jariah laughed again, her voice like wind through a crystal chime. You're both fascinating. So cautious, so afraid of what lies beneath the surface. The Queen gestured for them to follow deeper into the garden. The path shifted as they walked, opening new routes and blooming archways lined with glowing vines. A floating creature, something between a manta ray and a jellyfish, glided above them, humming a low musical tone. This place is alive, Roland whispered. It is sacred, Jariah said. The Garden of Truth is where our ancestors first shed their coverings. It is where the Sylenari discovered that truth is not in words or weapons, but in connection. Myra rolled her eyes but kept her scanner aimed at a vine that wrapped around her wrist, gently pulsing to her heartbeat. I think this vine is flirting with me. Jariah led them to a circular glade where the plants parted, revealing a stone platform and a wide pool of liquid glass. The pool shimmered with soft colors, reflecting not just their images, but fragments of memories, emotions, even unspoken thoughts. Here, she said, we offer ourselves, not in body, but in being. The water reveals what the mind hides. Mira crossed her arms. You're telling me this thing reads thoughts? Not thoughts, Jariah said softly. Desires, regrets, truth. Roland took a step toward the pool. And what if we don't like what we see? Jariah gave him a long, unreadable look. Then you learn, or you leave. Before he could respond, she stepped onto the platform and into the pool. The surface didn't splash, it shimmered, like silk parting. Her body was reflected back in shimmering layers, her regal poise, her desire for unity, and something deeper. A flicker of loneliness. She turned. Now you. Roland hesitated, then removed his boots and jacket, stepping into the pool as soon as he touched the liquid. It pulsed with silver light. Scenes flickered: his childhood on Earth, his first command, his fear of making peace where others expected conflict. Then Jariah appeared in the vision, her robe falling again, her eyes daring him to meet her without armor. He gasped and stepped back, trembling. You see, she said, no secrets here. Myra watched from the edge, her lips tight. Captain, maybe this isn't necessary. But Roland shook his head. No, it is. He stepped forward again and faced Jeriah. You scare me, she blinked. You're powerful, seductive, in control. You see right through people. I'm not used to that. I'm used to tactics, strategy, chain of command. But here, I feel like like a student. Jeriah moved closer. And that bothers you? No, he said. It humbles me. Their reflections danced across the liquid between them, no longer separate. The water pulsed once, then stilled. Raya reached out and touched his chest. Then you are ready. For what? She smiled. To understand why we brought you. Here, before he could ask more, a sound echoed in the air sharp, mechanical foreign. Mira drew her sidearm. That wasn't natural. A harsh static buzzed in their earpieces. Captain, came the voice of Ensign Patel from the Terra Nova. We're picking up a shuttle entering orbit. It's not Sylenari. It's not ours either. Jeriah's eyes narrowed. The Norg Mira tensed. You know them. Jeriah's voice dropped. They take what they want. Even peace. Roland stepped out of the pool, grabbing his jacket. Then we better figure out if this peace is worth fighting for. Jeriah walked beside him, wet skin glistening. If you stand with us, you will not stand alone. For the first time since landing, Roland believed her. And for the first time, he wasn't just thinking about survival. He was thinking about what it might mean to belong on a planet of truth, beauty, and dangerous emotion. The moment they stepped out of the Garden of Truth, the atmosphere shifted. The air was still warm and sweet, but tension now hummed beneath every breath. Roland adjusted his communicator, trying to reach Terra Nova again. Still scrambled, Myra said, frowning at her wrist console. Whatever that unidentified ship is, it's jamming us. Jeriah walked between them, calm but alert. Her robe had reappeared, regenerated by a thin membrane of living silk that wrapped around her at will. The Norg are not subtle. When they come, it's never to talk. Roland looked to her. Tell me who they are. Pirates, she said. Mercenaries, scavengers of culture. They raid planets like ours, take knowledge, art, people. We have nothing they value but peace, and peace to them is weakness. Mira glanced up at the sky, where a faint shadow now circled above the Sylenari towers. How long do we have? Not long, Jeriah replied. They do not ask permission. To land, as if summoned by her words, the ground trembled slightly, followed by a deep hum in the distance. A ship brutish and dark descended just beyond the coral skyline. It was jagged, patchwork, unlike anything the Sylenari would build. Roland clenched his fists. Your people aren't armed. Jeriah shook her head. Weapons were abandoned generations ago. We turned inward, choosing pleasure and truth. Beautiful, Mira muttered, and catastrophically naive. Jeriah's eyes flashed. We believed others would respect what we nurtured. Roland touched her arm. It's not your fault. But right now, we need a plan. Jeriah led them swiftly through the winding garden paths, toward the temple at the center of the city. As they moved, more Sylenari joined dozens of them, silent, ungraceful eyes full of fear but trust. Inside the temple, glowing vines coiled down the walls, pulsing with the emotions of the crowd. Roland stood at the center with Jeriah, Myra scanning the air for signals. They'll expect no resistance, Jeriah said. They may demand tribute. Roland looked round. Do you have any defensive tech at all? Shields? Emergency barriers? No, she said. But we do have one weapon they cannot steal. And what's that? She stepped forward, her voice ringing across the temple like a melody. Us. The room stilled. Every Sylenari stood taller. Roland blinked. Explain. The Norg are not immune to emotion. We've studied them. Their minds are laced with pain, trauma, rage. But emotion is power here. You saw the garden. You saw the way our touch can shape the air. If we act together, we can flood them with something they do not understand, intimacy. Mira groaned. Please tell me your defense plan doesn't involve an orgy. Jiraiya smiled. Not physical, emotional, connection. We can project, influence. We can overwhelm them with empathy. Roland nodded slowly. A psychic counterstrike. Drown their hate in something they've never felt. Yes, she said. But it must be channeled, directed. That requires a link. A link. She stepped closer to Roland, her hand finding his. You, a human anchor. Your mind is not like ours. You can bear conflict, resistance, focus. With your help, we can project further. Myra looked concerned. Captain, this isn't just strategy. They want to plug into your emotions. You sure you're ready to be a love conduit? Roland gave a tight smile. I'm a captain. I've been worse. Jiraiya tilted her head. We must bond, fully. There can be no secrets. What does that mean? Her eyes searched his. You must trust me with your core, your joys, your griefs, your wants, nothing hidden. If you hesitate, the link will fail. He swallowed hard. Then let's do it. They stepped to the center of the temple. The crowd began to hum, soft tones resonating through the structure. Glowing threads descended from the vines above, wrapping around Roland and Jiraiya. Her hands pressed against his chest, his against hers. She whispered, "Open." The world shifted. Suddenly, he was everywhere inside her mind, her memory, her longing. He saw her first vision of Earth, her dreams of peace, her aching loneliness as a queen with no equal, and she saw him his battle scars, his fear of never being enough, the pressure of always having to lead. Their bond pulsed like a heartbeat. The humming grew louder outside. The Norg landed. Inside, the Sylenari stood ready. The moment of peace was over. But something far more powerful had taken its place. Unity, and for the first time, Roland understood what real strength looked like, not in weapons or armor, but in the raw, fearless act of being seen. Outside the Sylenari city, the Norg ship touched down with a guttural hiss. Its metal belly opened wide, vomiting a squad of bulky figures in black and red armor. Their movements were harsh, mechanical. Guns pulsed with heat. Boots cracked the glassy surface of Sylenari stone as they marched forward, blind to beauty, deaf to peace. Inside the temple, the light turned white-hot. Captain Roland Vex stood frozen. Yet aflame, the link had formed. Jiraiya's mind was inside, his soft and sharp at once, while the pulse of hundreds of Sylenari hummed in the background. They weren't just projecting emotion, they were becoming it. Every pain Roland had carried, every desire, every failure, every breath of hope he never spoke aloud. It pulsed now like a beacon through the empathic web of the Sylenari. Jiraiya whispered, "Let it rise. Let them feel you." He did. He let the memories pour out. His mother's laughter, his first command, the day he lost a friend in orbit over EOS 7, the feeling of standing alone again and again, and still choosing to hope. He let it all rush into the air. The garden walls pulsed brighter. Then came Jiraiya offering her grief, her longing for connection, the centuries of holding up a perfect mask while the stars mocked her. Loneliness, they were no longer to minds. They were a storm outside. The temple, the Norg felt it. The lead mercenary, a hulking brute named Vark, paused mid-step. His boot hovered above the sacred stone. His hand, gripping his weapon, twitched. "What is this?" he growled. "I feel ... warmth." Behind him, another Norg dropped his rifle. "Something's wrong. It's inside me." "Shut it out." Vark barked. "It's a trick." But at Wasn's single quotes, the wave of emotion surged, pure, unfiltered human vulnerability and Sylenari grace. It hit the invaders like an invisible flood. Hardened killers fell to their knees. Their vision blurred. Their triggers went untouched. Inside the temple, the Sylenari moved as one. Each citizen stood tall, hands raised, channeling feeling through the glowing vines that connected to the throne platform. Myra, still on the perimeter, stared at the readings on her console. "Captain, the energy signature. It's off the charts. You're broadcasting like a damn sun." Roland's voice was deeper now, vibrating with the link. "They need to understand. They need to feel what life is." The platform beneath him thrummed, absorbing every thread of thought and radiating it outward. Joy, sorrow, love, loss, all of it flowed into the emotional storm that now surrounded the city like a glowing aurora. Jiraiya's voice echoed in his mind. "More, let them drown in it." Roland focused. He remembered standing on a frozen ridge as a young officer, watching dawn rise over Saturn's fourth moon. He remembered the moment he first stepped onto the Terra Nova and realized he was responsible for lives, not just systems. He remembered his first laugh with Myra, and then Jiraiya, her kiss, her strength. And suddenly, they were not just defending a city, they were rewriting what it meant to fight. Vark screamed, "End this." He lifted. His weapon then froze. He saw himself as a boy again, saw the day his mother was taken, the days he hardened into something else. Tears slipped down his scarred cheek. "I don't want this," he muttered. The other Norg backed away, terrified by what they were feeling. They weren't trained for this. You could fight fire with fire, but how do you fight understanding back? In the temple, Jiraiya collapsed to her knees. "The link, it's too strong." Roland dropped beside her, grabbing her hands. "Stay with me, just a little longer." She nodded, breathless. "They're breaking, but so are we." Myra stepped forward. "Captain, we need to end the transmission. Your neural output is hitting dangerous levels. We can't stop." He said, "Not until they leave." But even as he said it, he felt the link stretching thin, fragile. The emotion was becoming too much to control. If it snapped now, the feedback could crush them all. Jiraiya raised her face to his, glowing, tears streaming down her cheeks. One more push. They embraced, forehead to forehead, breath sinking. Together, Roland whispered. The final surge burst outward like a star going nova. Every vine, every crystal, every breath of air in the Sylenari city exploded with color and sensation. The invaders cried out, not in pain, but in awakening. They stumbled back to their ship like blind men seeing sunlight for the first time. When the Norg ship lifted into the sky, it left without a single shot fired. Inside the temple, silence fell. The vines dimmed. The storm calmed. The link dissolved. Roland collapsed into Jiraiya's arms, both of them drenched in sweat and raw emotion. Mira knelt beside them, relief in her voice. You did it. Jiraiya smiled faintly. We did it. Roland looked around at the crowd, every Sylenari exhausted. But upright, he had fought a war without bullets, and won. But what came next might be even harder. The sun rose slowly over the glimmering spires of the Sylenari city, casting golden light across the crystalline streets. Where there had once been fear, now there was peace. And where there had once been strangers, now there were bonds. Captain. Roland Vex stood on a high balcony overlooking the Garden of Truth. His uniform was torn, stained with sweat and stardust, but his posture was steady. Below, Sylenari citizens gathered in gentle clusters, their song-like hums echoing through the air. Celebration, mourning, gratitude all woven into a single sound. Myra approached from behind, holding a data tablet. Transmission from command. Finally cleared. They single quotes. Confused. Impressed, mostly. And a little worried about the phrase emotion bomb being added to our first contact logs. Roland smirked faintly. Could have gone worse. Could have gone naked, Myra said dryly, then raised an eyebrow. Oh wait, it did. He chuckled, but the weight of everything that had passed lingered in his eyes. You all right? Mira gave a small nod. I didn't think we'd make it. But you did something no human's ever done, Roland. You stopped a war, by feeling. He turned his gaze to the garden again, where Jiraiya now stood among her people. Her presence was radiant, robe flowing behind her like water, hair catching the sunlight in strands of silver and violet. She looked up at him and smiled. A moment later, she was at his side. The Norg have not returned, she said softly. And they won't. Their leader sent us a message, strange words of confusion, guilt, and apology. Didn't think that word existed in their vocabulary, Myra muttered. It didn't, Jiraiya replied. Not until now. Roland studied her face, memorizing every curve and line. What happens next? Jiraiya reached out and took his hand. Next, we write a new path together, a future that binds our stars. You're serious, Roland, said Earth. Sylenari Alliance. She nodded. You brought us strength we had forgotten. We offer you wisdom you have yet to learn. Together, we're more than we ever were apart. Mira grinned. You realize this is going to break the diplomacy rulebook in half. I'll write a new one, Roland said, turning to Jiraiya with her. They walked together to the temple steps, where the Sylenari High Council waited. The oldest among them, a being named Elder Kalia, stepped forward. His hands lifted in reverence. Captain Roland Vex, the Sylenari recognize your bravery, not in war, but in trust. You opened your soul, and in doing so, saved ours. Roland inclined his head. I only did what felt right. Jiraiya squeezed his hand gently. And sometimes, Captain, that is the bravest thing of all. Myra stepped forward. On behalf of the Terra Nova and the United Human Colonies, I formally request a diplomatic pact with the Sylenari people. May our futures grow together, Elder. Kalia bowed. Then let it be known the age of distance ends today. Cheers rang out, soft and melodious, like a choir of wind chimes in the breeze. Petals rained from the sky, soft, fragrant, glowing in gentle pastels. Later, as the festivities quieted, Jiraiya led Roland back to the garden, the same place where it all began. It's strange, he said. We came here expecting danger. Instead, I found you. Jiraiya smiled, stepping close. And I found a man with a heart too big for one world. She kissed him, slowly, fully. There was no tension, no fear, no mission. Only the soft brushing of skin and the warmth of understanding. The garden around them shimmered once more, vines glowing with their joined emotion, petals opening like secrets. When they parted, Jiraiya whispered, "Will you stay?" Roland's heart answered before his words did. Yes, Mira would take command of the return mission. The Terra Nova would head home, carrying stories of a miracle alliance. And Roland, he would stay on Sylenari not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, but as a bridge, a lover, a friend, a new beginning in the stars above. Where once only warships flew, now floated beacon symbols of peace between two species, shining across the void. Humanity had come to make contact, but it left behind something far greater: love.